No, I restarted it. It actually shut down on its own because it was overheating. Yeah, it was right in the direct sunlight, so it's pretty warm. It is a cool day in the direct sunlight, not outside in the cold, on this side of the window panes. Yeah, it's nice and warm. All right, where were we? Page 18. And from association with the monks of the various orders who stopped frequently at Baumgarten, especially Cistercians, Dominicans, Carmelites, and Franciscans. The Cistercians had been brought to Portugal by Count Henry of Burgundy, first Count of Portugal. It was in Burgundy that St. Bernard had founded his monastery of Clairvaux, and Count Henry had brought the teachings of St. Bernard about Mary, the mediatrix of all Greece, the mediatrix of all grace, the Virgin of the Memorare. What mediatrix is one word, Mediatrix. The mediatrix of all grace, the Virgin of the Memorare. One of the Count's first acts on being made Count of Portugal, after the defeat of the Moors, was to erect an immense monastery in Alcobaça, about 15 miles from Fatima, to which he brought 900 of St. Bernard's monks. The peacemaker who went to war, 1963. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, Nuno was taught that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession, was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly to thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the world incarnate, despise not my petition, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. And it was not only a case of Nuno choosing Mary, she, on her side, chose him, and chose him as her warrior. Pope Benedict, when beautifying Nuno, Pope Benedict XIV, when beautifying Nuno Alvarez Pereira on January 23rd, 1918, during the First World War, prefaced his decree with the words, "It was evidently the provident and wise counsel of God to reserve this most noble cause for this time of war and stress in Europe, in order that a perfect example of Christian patriotism might shine in the darkness of selfish hate." The immediate result of Nuno's devotion to Our Lady was a love of the Holy Eucharist. Through the saying of the Rosary and through identification of himself as his Queen's Knight by the token of her scapular, he was thinking of Mary frequently. He trained for her. He proudly asked her to witness his little victories over other boys in jousting. He told her that her picture would dominate his coat of arms. He was speaking to her as his horse clattered over the moat at Baumgarten after hours on the countryside on which he was to conduct one of the great decisive battles of world history, and on which his queen would, centuries later, during another and far greater war, appear with conditions for world peace. More and more, as the boy grew older and his devotion to Mary increased almost to a way of life, Lady Irene noticed that Nuno remained longer at his prayers in the Baumgarten chapel. Once in a while, outside the regular prayer times, the boy would go voluntarily to visit the great Lord. He often mentioned First Communion and how he longed to receive the great Lord into his own self. Don Alvaro was not indifferent to this unusual growth of piety, but Lady Irene was ecstatic over it. "Whence it is, O Lord," she would say, "that I should have such a son," and she redoubled her practices of penance and begged God that Nuno might make up for the weakness of her own life. Thus, Nuno, through the good fortune of choosing the Queen of Heaven as his lady, was easily and quite naturally becoming a saint. At the court in Santarem, Nuno was shocked at the little respect given to our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, and the scarcity of praise to Mary. He was not yet old enough to fully realize the extent of wickedness in the palace, but it did seem to him that there was not altogether agreeable change in Diego. When the court returned to Lisbon, after the Pope had imposed a truce with Castile, and Nuno followed as equerry to the Queen, he found that he had, without seeking it, become a favorite of the Queen. Deceived by her beauty and gentleness towards him, he could not believe the evil that he heard rumored of her. When he missed the Lady Irene, he asked the Queen if she would not bring Lady Irene to Lisbon as governess of the royal daughter Beatrice. The Queen at once assented, and Lady Irene came to Lisbon. We do not know exactly what followed during those next 4 years, but we can imagine. Nuno was approaching adolescence in the worst atmosphere imaginable. His vision of Sir Galahad, the knight who so loved chastity and chivalry, was being beaten and shattered every day by what he saw and heard around him. He was perplexed, saddened. He knew his lady did not approve. Her great gifts, the rosary and the scapular, were not appreciated as they should have been appreciated. Our Lord was left alone in his tabernacle prison day after day, and even on Sundays. Meanwhile, almost under the same roof, he was being insulted. Lady Irene watched over her son and prayed ceaselessly. "Remember, O gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection." Nuno had flown to Mary's protection. He had given her his life. Her scapular was his token, her rosary was his voice, and his lady was with him. Instead of being absorbed by his milieu of sensuality, Nuno was repulsed by it. He resolved to take a vow of virginity. Like Galahad, he felt that virginity would be a source of achievement over evil. He feared to make known his resolve to anyone, even to the Lady Irene. But as Brother Francis had chosen Lady Poverty and wedded himself to her by vow, Nuno had decided to choose Lady Chastity as his spouse. Was even this dream to be shattered? In the spring of 1376, when Nuno was 16, Don Alvaro came to court. The elderly governor seemed to feel the approach of death, and he wanted to leave things in order. Shortly after he had come to Lisbon, he sent for Nuno. So someone asking, where are the records of the year 1376 of this Nuno who turned 16? I don't know. Were they keeping birth records back then? Is this all made up? It's a good question. They do. They talk about Fatima. Someone was talking about that. They keep mentioning how they see that on Tucker's wall, Fatima. It is very interesting stuff to learn about. I guess you could call it useless information. Essential learning? I don't know. I mean, it's not as though to get specific and have to test you on who this Nuno was and remember what year he was born, but just to kind of have a general idea and understanding, kind of brush or skim over things, as they say. And it's nice to have the freedom if you want to elaborate on something or expound more. Just a word or sections sometimes can be really interesting to dive into the history of different places and stories, beliefs, cultures, foods, environments, hemispheres, timetables. Yeah, exactly. It's fun stuff. Good, we're gonna read a little bit more, yeah? Yeah, my voice is doing okay, thank you. I know, and the sun's hitting just right off these. Why don't you spin it? I'm gonna move it over a little bit. Oh, you probably can't see it from here anyways. But yeah, then when it spins around, I know, I love the designs it shines on the wall. It's so neat. I know, you can make it look a lot different too if you just put like a little crinkle or crease in it. It makes the shapes look totally different. Or even just like a solid color circle or anything. Yeah, it totally changes the way it shines on the wall. That looks cool. I'll show you what I mean. See it up there on the ceiling? See right now it looks like an X over there. Yeah, those are cool. They were just the birthday decorations at Walmart that we had gotten. Alright, what page were we on? Like a Galahad, he felt that virginity would be a source of achievement over evil. He feared to make his own resolve to anyone, even to Lady Irene. But as Brother Francis had chose Lady Providie, he wedded himself to her by vow. Nuno had decided to choose Lady Chastity as his spouse. When even this dream to be shattered? Oh yeah, we'd started here because 1376. And the spring of 1376, when Nuno was 16, Don Alvaro again came to court. The elderly governor seemed to feel the approach of death, and he wanted to leave things in order. Shortly after he had come to Lisbon, he sent for Nuno. The young knight was to be found either in the field, in the chapel, or with history books. Nuno, his father, began. It seems to me that the time has come when, for your own good and in the service of God and of the king, you ought to marry. The words struck Nuno's heart like a thunderbolt. He had not thought in making his secret vow that his father might impose marriage under parental command. He had spent his energies in study and in the risks and excitement of the chase, and knew by such prudence and by restraint of imagination, with the help of God, that even in the court at Lisbon he could keep the vow. There was a resolute tone to Don Alvaro's voice, a tone that Nuno knew well. It could readily change to a shout that would rock the room where it could readily change to a shout that would rock the room were there the slightest word of dissent. He knew that his father would have laughed at his vow. He bowed his head. You are a man now, Nuno, continued Don Alvaro affectionately, and you ought to make a family for yourself. I have made a good choice for you. It is Lady Eleonora de Alva, who is young and beautiful, very rich, and of the first nobility, like ours. She is the widow of Vasco Concals de Barrasso. I have already caused her to be questioned in this regard, and she has consented, pending the king's approval. As soon as I arrived in Lisbon, I asked the king, and he not only approved, but has already had Lady Eleanor called to court. Also, since she is related to us within the fourth degree, I have applied for the dispensation. I have applied for the dispensation from Pope Gregory the Sixth. It is an excellent match, and I would very much like to see you make it. What do you think? It's not the sixth? No, you're right. You're reading along. You must know your Roman numerals. This question was useless after Don Alvaro had so willfully determined the course Nuno would take. Though taken back, the young knight hesitatingly stammered a few words. My lord, I pray you, dispense me from marrying. I was not prepared for such news as this. I was not prepared for such news as this. Leave me to consider the matter. Meanwhile, you could answer that. His father cut short the conversation. He was amazed and extremely annoyed. As soon as Nuno left, Don Alvaro told Lady Irene of Nuno's reaction. He could not understand it. Nuno, she said to him when they were alone together, your father told me that you were hesitant about marrying Lady Eleanor de Alvam. Why? She is most attractive and a fine young lady. You would have much in common. Then Nuno finally opened his soul to his mother, telling her of his intention never to marry at all. Lady Irene herself, under the circumstances of the day and undoubtedly mindful of her own experience with Don Alvaro, brought forth 1,000 reasons why Nuno should marry. She begged Nuno to accept willingly, but he refused, constantly, steadfastly. When the conversation was over, much perturbed, Lady Irene went to Don Alvaro to tell him what had happened. Immediately Don Alvaro called in other sons who might influence Nuno, and told them that all should try to make the young knight see the foolishness of his intention to abstain from marriage. I am resolved that for his own good and for the common good, Nuno should make this marriage, although I do not wish to resort to violence. Before long, the young esquire recognized that it would be useless to oppose his father any longer. With a fervent prayer to his lady and offering this act of obedience to her, as he had offered all else in his life, he gave his consent. Lady Eleonora de Alvam arrived at Villa Nova da Riana, where the court was then staying, with a magnificent retinue of relations and servants. The nuptials, in which King Ferdinand and the Queen took part, were celebrated with great pomp on Our Lady's great feast, August 15th, 1376, a day that was to be recurrently important in Nuno's life. Immediately after the ceremony, the newly married couple went to Bumjardin. For 3 years following after a brief stay at Bumjardin, Nuno lived the peaceful life of a country gentleman on his own estate, the Villa of Santa Maria di Pedraza, in the Minho, formerly one of the properties of his wife Stanley. He found happiness there. It was a relief to be away from court life, to ride and hunt through the beautiful mountains, his own master, followed by his 15 equerries and 20 or 30 valets. For the time he himself believed that the dreams of his youth, dreams of being a Galahad to save and purify Portugal, were over and done with, that nothing remained for him but to govern his household and to preside over the education of his children. He had 2 sons. Both died soon after birth. Later came a daughter whom Nuno and Lady Eleanor named Beatrice, after the Princess Beatrice, to whom Nuno's mother was still governess. Nuno loved his little daughter deeply and poured upon her the affection of his great heart. In the melancholy moments when there came to his memory the thought of his promise of virginity and of being a grand knight, when in the hall of arms of his castle, the sun perhaps penetrating through the high glass windows and sending flashes from the helmets, from the breastplates of steel, from the swords that hung there idle, when there awoke again in Nuno Alvarez the spirit of a free country, and he wept for his shattered dreams. Then especially did the young father go to press his tiny daughter to his heart, and in this way he forgot the vanities, the fantastic enterprises, the longed-for glory he had hoped to win for his lady. During those 3 years, Nuno came to be an idol not only to his wife and servants and to all their dependents, but to the people of all the surrounding country. One biographer says, he was adored for his goodness. He was still doing everything for his lady, and he was growing in humility, and especially in love of the Blessed Eucharist. His lady was still doing things for him. Chapter 3. Sir Galahad. Nuno's 3 years of country life passed like a moment. Meanwhile, in May of 1378, Nuno's father, the great Don Alvaro, died in Almeria. Nuno went to the obsequies, which, though sad, were extremely solemn and impressive. Obsequies, Obsequies. The corpse was carried in an immense procession from Almeria to Flor de Rosa, where it was laid to rest in a bed of stone. As successor to Don Alvaro in the priorship of Crate and Grand Master of the Knights of St. John, the king named Don Peter Alvarez, Nuno's eldest brother. In so doing, however, he committed an open injustice to Alvaro Conclaves Camelo, who already had the title of Porears, and to whom the place of Grand Master belonged, therefore by right of succession. All was disorder in the kingdom. The truth was Castile had been short-lived. Not only was Castile being deprived of Portuguese revenues, but the King of Portugal himself was faced with a disunited kingdom, the various nobles plundering and hoarding for themselves. The very knowledge that the king was leading the country to ruin with Castile gave fuel to the desire of the various nobles to enrich themselves. Those really good, like Nuno, felt inadequate and too disunited to cope with such a confusion of evils. The wicked were without restraint. King Ferdinand himself was not altogether wanting in natural ability and a certain goodness of heart, but by his weakness and through the connivings of the queen, he made himself accomplice to all the perfidies which afflicted his miserable country. Portugal, unhappy land, was each day becoming more and more subject to the power of her enemies, both domestic and foreign. One day Nuno received a message from the king. Arm yourself and repair to Portalegre, it read, and aid in defense of the city. The Castilians threatened to take it. Notwithstanding all the scandals and the folly of his sovereign, Nuno recognized the king as the civil authority in Portugal, and the symbol of the country. He did not hesitate a moment. He ordered his equerries and valets, bade goodbye to his wife and baby, and within 24 hours he was galloping away from the pretentious residence of Pedraza towards a distant battle. He was scarcely 20 years old. How many other young men, at the call of their country, have done the same? When Nuno arrived at Porto Alegre, dust covered and weary, and was admitted to the city, he found the defenses there in a sad state. There was no unity, there was no strategy. The people were panicky. Immediately, Nuno set to work. Despite his few years, as he galloped about the city with his entourage of equerries and valets, giving orders and bolstering morale with spirited words of encouragement, no one thought to question his authority. He organized patrols and met the Castilians before they reached the city. There was bloody fighting, and Nuno was in the thick of it. Many older men, shamed by his bravery, threw themselves wholeheartedly into the battle, and the Castilians were routed. Sheer bravery had won the day. When the situation was well in hand, Nuno gathered his remaining men together and rode back to Pedraza. But he was no longer a country gentleman. Sir Galahad had come to life. Nuno's immediate followers, his own equerries, his valets, were, as we have said, utterly devoted to him. They not only admired but loved him, and after the manner in which he conducted affairs at Porto Alegre, their admiration and love increased 100-fold. He was not back at Pedraza long before he had a plan that would take him back to the front. He called his immediate followers together, and having obtained their permission, he sent the following note to John Ansores, son of one of the Castilian leaders. I and 10 of my men will meet you and 10 of your men in open combat. If the victory is ours, you will retire from Portugal, and not many lives will have been lost. If we die, then at least we shall not see the ruin of our country. The Castilians accepted, and Nuno and his chosen 10 were already prepared and about to ride off to this rendezvous with death when an order came from King Ferdinand forbidding the project. The person responsible for this prohibition was Don Peter Alvarez, Nuno's older brother, the prior of Crete, to whom Nuno had confided his plan. Being an utterly practical man and not too inclined to the heroic, Don Peter had secretly written to the king and asked that Nuno be forbidden to so risk his life. It must have been humiliating for Nuno to write to John Ansores and cancel the duel out of obedience to a king who otherwise commanded little obedience in his kingdom. But Nuno's respect for authority, which he knew came from God, was greater than his regard for his own honor. He knew his lady in heaven wanted him to serve her this time by staying home. But it was not until he had gone to the king personally and thrown himself on his knees before the throne, extolling the virtues of his plan as a way of perhaps saving many lives, that he was convinced that it was not a royal whim, but a command which he had to obey. We will pause there on page 32. An astronaut being chosen. But your ways with the strength of your creator.
Drowning with good nature, got a light, hey, got a light so bright you can slice through the equator. Ancient fathers before you continue their adventure. Helps you understand your neighbor till you shred through all these layers. And after that, when you split this world in half and you step into the prayer, you're a knight in shining armor with the kingdom at your back. Your prayer, your despair gives you power, it's a fact. When you climb these lonely towers and you found your way back. Will you carry me? Will you carry me? I'm dancing. Will you carry me? Will you carry me? I'm dancing. Will you carry me? Will you carry me? I'm dancing. Oh, will you carry me? Will you carry me? I'm dancing. For the time and the timing's right. You're lost at sea, can't find your light. You got no song and your song won't play. And the won't day and the bell won't ring. Look into the sky, know you're one of them. Shining in the darkness to all the children. Remind them of a day when the clouds will go away, when the sun will shine our way. One day will be today, when the king will find his crown and the light will be put down. You've been searching, now you found. You've been searching all around. Will you carry me? Will you carry me? I'm dancing. Will you carry me? Will you carry me?
With this foot, your right foot up on your left leg. Stretch on your right knee. And you want to switch. And put your left one up on your right. Helps release some fluid if you have any. What does cause built up fluid in those areas sometimes? What'd you say about ligaments? Yes, pulling a ligament can cause fluid buildup. Being hypermobile, yeah, I have to be careful of that because all of my joints hyperextend pretty easy. So like just simple walking or running too quickly, the legs hyperextend and you pull ligaments. That can cause fluid buildup. It's totally normal. Probably a daily cycle, yeah, for a lot of people. I mean, you could probably build up strength in different ways so you don't tear as many ligaments, or be careful not to hyperextend. You start to learn your own kind of movements and capabilities. Know your limits. Yeah. KYL. Kill. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like doing actually decompression was the word of the day. Decompression. Yeah, hyperextending those things, even just doing the hand ones. You will feel it. You pull on one finger a little bit. I'm not pulling your finger, I'm pulling my own finger. Alright, so you will feel that. Just a basic, just a little bit. Just pull on it a little bit. Almost feel those joints kind of separate a little bit. So yeah, that's going to help if you have any built up fluid or anything. It can help with just basic normal chemical regulation too. When you start to learn about the tissues and the glands. Right, it's really interesting. Acupressure points, really fun stuff to learn about. We've been trying to get that into basic education as well too.
It seems like everybody wants to make everything some kind of specialized. You need to have special skills and training and try to capitalize and profit, right, and keep it from the public systems, and then they will profit from it in their little private sectors. Yeah, it gets really sick, old and disgusting. It's basic stuff. I know, but we made jokes about this. This was back, it was a little before COVID, yeah, right around that time, before they shut the schools down. Right, because they had mentioned some mindful classes. Like, okay, if we can't do stretches or whatever it is, like basic stuff, too offensive, someone might get hurt. Right, so then they overdo the other stuff that they're allowed to do. I know. I know, it's like Robbie comes home, he's like, I was tightrope walking and zip lining, and I fell off of this thing. I got a baseball wailed at my head. Basketball. I think that's any better. It was an accident. It happens. Kids messing around. Well, no, he wasn't actually complaining. He was laughing about it. It was just his glasses were broken, so I asked him. You got to replace those. So it was just a natural question. How did that happen? Oh, someone willed a basketball at your head. Also, it was just playing around. I know we were kids too. I used to goof around all the time too. I know. Right, just a lot of basic things, and then when you had a lot of teachers kind of ignoring a lot of stuff, not from us personally, but this was nationwide. Obviously, different things going on. Some kids getting killed, and some of these situations where teachers want to ignore and overimpose because they have personal rifts, vengeances, whoever they're trying to teach a lesson to. Right, Governor Mills? Yeah, it's actually really sick and disturbing. So, all of that, we don't really care. To us, it's like kids will be kids, people will be people, greedy, seven deadly sins. We get it. So, we're concerned about hostages and people in imminent dire situations. So, for years, we have had cases just like this. Many have not survived, they've been killed. We've shown them to you. Not all make the big screen. I mean, literally, they have shot their own children in cold blood if you push the truth too much and people start to wake up to the truth. Right. Well, a lot of them just hold strong, knowing that even if people do wake up and say anything and question them like they have been, they can just deny it. Just rumors, okay? What are you going to do? Take us to court then. Well, if that were true, the cops would do something. Well, if that were true, she wouldn't be acting like that. Oh, look at her history. Well, in the 90s, systemic racism. I know. Believe me, a lot of these psychos and people and state workers around here over the years, if you want to go back to 2006, 7, and 8, and 9, and 10, when they were allocating a lot of these things, fearing the non-vaxxers and the Karens and the bullies, a lot of those psychos were still pissed about shit my parents did in the 90s. Systemic racist jokes, and trust me, I understand. It pissed us off too. The shit they were repeating from stupid fucking Ritz bows that would swoop through and make it seem cool to tell those kind of jokes and just shrug it off. People were pissed. Yeah, let's see. My dad telling a joke about his chainsaw, saying, run nigga nigga nigga, run nig nig. And my sister calling Miss Patfoot, Mrs. Nigger. And then when they said something to her, she just laughs about it, like her brother told her to say it. And you try to tell them, even as a kid. I know, I remember growing up and people saying stuff about those things, and they would just laugh it off. People were just jealous, overreacting. It's like, I don't even think that they even expected anything to be done. I think it was just the blatant ignorance to it and laughing it off and not recognizing it and telling the children that's not okay. Yeah, that was my older brother and sister. Yeah, it's amazing, huh? Right, so then, as they get older and the drug trafficking and all that pissing people off. The child molesters, yeah. I know, and what's funny is the one that got arrested, I don't think he did anything. I know, it's interesting, it really is. When you actually look at it in the history. Why won't they talk about it? I know, right? When you try to bring that stuff up to get them to understand what's actually happening, oh, well, how long ago was that? But then when they try to justify the things they're doing, they go way back trying to justify what they've been doing to innocent people, you sick fucks. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can go on and on and on. So, yeah, by 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, when you had a lot of those people just jumping on board those trains, and as you can see, a lot of them have moved away and are doing very well for themselves. A lot of money. Right, well, when you have those investigations and those funding lines that are connected, the same ones that are writing books, Fox News, Hollywood, SNL Scouters, Coast to Coasters, Ghost Alien Hunters. We're at the Governor Hill Mansion in Augusta, Maine. Yeah, when we went to Canada in 2017, years after being fed up and traumatized, private investigator shot himself in 2009. Right, dog's leg blew up and we lost use of an arm. Go back 2012, 2013. He beat up the little boy in the tub. Right, the psychos around here protecting him say it was just a whack. Little brat probably deserved it. Yeah, these people are fucking crazy. That's what I'm saying, is they will do anything to not acknowledge and soften the worst fucking abuse so they don't have to acknowledge their bullshit, their neglect, their allocations that are so inhumane. Yeah, it's really sick. It needs to be addressed. We're right here in Augusta, Maine. Anybody that's reporting to the public should be reporting about this, knowing the networks it's connected to, the child and animal pornography and the activists. What's going on with the vaccines and all these things, kidnappings, murders, the UFO connections, the technology, how that's connected to a lot of kidnappings and murders and torture, and also to a lot of professional investigations. Right, and so when so many people are playing fucking stupid and not just being real, I'm not quite sure where to go with that. It's maddening. So I could really care less. Yeah, I really could. I could absolutely care fucking less about your drugs, about your seed oils, about your vaccines. You can seriously take it all and shove it right up your fucking nasty ass. We're concerned about the children and the hostages that are in the custody of sick fucks being protected by sick, demented, delusional citizens that are not able to accept reality, and that's fucking scary. Welcome to Pandora's box. The tickets are free. I know. It's like you just wind up at a show you didn't even want to go to, right? And it turns out to be a great show. Like, man, I'm so glad we made that wrong turn. Right, so do you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, suggestions as to how we can help our children that are in the custody of sick murderers, pedophiles, being protected by these fucking psychos? Yeah, and I would pack your shit and get the fuck out of here. It's not a joke, it's not a threat, it's a friendly suggestion. You know who we're talking to. There's a lot of very well established things that would be welcome in this city or anywhere. No matter where I am in this world, I would say the same thing. I know, it's an interesting perspective, right? Because say you grew up in a third world country and you didn't know these things, you only knew that. I mean, what does that mean, third world country? So say you grew up in a place, no electricity, running water, I mean, it exists, right? Right, so what forces? Is that military forces or is that independent groups that go around helping to dig wells and build hospitals? Who does all that? Right, I mean, so that should be part of the education system, right? Yeah, no, just let me know. I'm just throwing stuff out. I have no idea. I'm rambling. Yeah, we're just letting you know. Making suggestions. We could be totally retarded and not making any sense at all. Right, we're just rambling about nothing. Take it with a grain of salt. Look at the facts yourself. Yeah, and if you're not absolutely horrified and wanting to do what you can to help those children, well, then I guess you have a way, way thicker skin than me. Yeah, because to us that's evil. That's the root of all evil. And ignoring those things and seeing how it's connected to these networks and crimes, so many people concerned about the drugs and overdosing and murders and homelessness. Again, that education in the public school systems could help prevent a lot of that, huh? Yeah, but no, they don't want to do that. Bunch of criminals. They don't deserve that. Yeah, I know a lot of people miss the point, don't they, Oprah? Yeah, obviously, these people are so fucking sick. I can't believe so many people are carrying on in this world with like a lot of the Hollywood stuff. It's like, what the hell are they doing? It doesn't even make sense. It's literally. How can you explain that to people? I don't think you can. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, those are good suggestions, but I think it's all been tried. And I think actually a lot of them are profiting from trying, right? They almost make a joke about it knowing it's not going to work, and they'll just, what are you going to do? What costume are you going to wear? I'll go out praising Jesus. I'll go out praising Allah. I'll go out with the Quran. I'll go out with the Bible. Well, see, that's not going to work for you. They're going to look into your history. You got to fit the part. Oh, Charlie was perfect for that role, wasn't he? Yeah. Right, so it's just that stupidness. Hopefully people are waking up to that. Well, see, the problem is, too, we have so many people with degrees that don't have the world experience, the capabilities, or the heart or compassion to be able to do what they're doing. And they get into those jobs that they have their degrees for because they want to be labeled as some kind of good person. Oh, you want to be a nurse? Okay. Right, so then, once, they get in there and it's like not as glorifying as they thought it was, and you're cleaning bedpans and pus and blood and getting shit on and yelled at by white supremacists. I know. Now you're being abused and victimized, and this isn't right, and you got to teach those. I know, trust me, we have whole teams of people that deal with elderly abuse in those places because of those things. Oh, yeah. I mean, those nurses, they've gotten pissed over the years. They've murdered some of those patients. Yep, so thank goodness, just like body cameras in the police world, that stuff is easing up a bit too. Gets worse and better depending on awareness and where you're at, I guess, in the world. How's it going? You have running water over there yet, or is that? Yes, but you're having a hard time breathing in all the radioactive. Oh, you buy one of those battery camps? Yeah, that can be pretty hard, huh? I know, it almost makes me just lose my breath just thinking about it. So sad. Are they getting a lot of deformities in those parts of the world, or? I hope so. Yeah, my name is Mary, Governor Hill Mansion, Augusta, Maine. For real, folks, it's not a fucking joke. And there are radicals and people in this world that are aware of these punks and the child and animal pornography, and they will start hitting places here. And I know that's me included. And like I said, I'm done. We were done many years ago. I don't give a shit. If they hit it, they hit it. And they probably will if you keep ignoring it. Believe me, I know how these radicals and good forces work. And they're not going to continue to allow this. And they will take out the whole fucking building. Whether that be for retaliation with the drug and all the fucking shit these other fucking people have been doing, or to just put the poor kids out of their fucking misery knowing the torture they're going through. Yeah, we're not making any threats. We're not going to do it. We're just letting you know that's probably what's going to happen. And if you say, well, if that's true, we'd be more in a panic or taken off. Well, then you haven't been here. Because all of that's already happened. It's already happened. You remember 2008, 9, 10. These people fucking forget. Christopher LaJoy was a private investigator for many years. And he worked for an insurance company. And I'm pretty sure, too, shortly before he shot himself, some people were bringing up some of those cases of pissed off people around here that, yeah, I guess he screwed up some of their insurance deals or something, like $1 million deals, you know? Right, so when you have that kind of heat and noise around too on top of everything else, right, it helps the sickos blend in. Right, so I don't know who the fuck you think you are, but my name's Mary. We're at the Governor Hill Mansion in Augusta, Maine, and we will continue to speak out for our children here until the proper authorities get our children out of the custody of these sick, fucking murderous pedophiles. These are facts, and if you don't know it, you should look into it, dude. Much love, health, and peace, everybody.